Hello everyone, my name is Glyza Valencia and I'll be discussing the American regime 1898 to 1946. Okay, the lesson objectives. After the lesson, the students should be able to describe how Americans established their government in the Philippines after the Spanish rule, and explaining the policy of benevolent assimilation and its purpose, identify key figures and institutions introduced under the American regime, recognize the challenges and criticisms, evaluate the lasting legacy of the American regime in the Philippines today. Okay, so first, the dawn of American rule from conflict to control. So the arrival of the Americans in the Philippines was direct consequence of the Spanish-American War, a conflict primarily driven by Cuban independence but quickly expanding to Spain's other colonies. Commodore George Dewey's victory over the Spain fleet in the Battle of Manila Bay on May 1, 1898 effectively ended Spanish naval power in the Pacific. So, uh, it talks about how the Americans came to rule the Philippines after the Spanish-American War. So, when the Americans defeated Spain in the Battle of Manila Bay in 1898, so the Spain lost control over the Philippines, and Filipino revolutionists, it is led by Filipino revolutionaries, it is led by Emilio Aguinaldo, and had already declared the independence from Spain on June 12, 1898. But this independence didn't last longer because um, the Americans colonized the Philippines, and um, yeah, they didn't recognize the Philippines as a free country. Next one is the Spanish-American War and the Treaty of Paris. So while Filipino were celebrating their independence from Spain and the United States were actually meeting in the Paris to decide what to do with Spain's former colonies. So in the Treaty of Paris, it was signed on December 10, 1898, and the Spanish-American War officially ended, and Spain sold the Philippines to the US for $20 million. And after that, United States took control of the Philippines. And also they say that it was their duty to civilize and Christianize the people, even though most Filipinos were already Christians that time. The outbreak of the Philippine-American War. Tensions grew because both sides wanted to control the country. So after the Treaty of Paris in 1898, both Filipino and American soldiers were staying in areas around Manila. And on February 4, 1899, um, an American soldier shot a Filipino soldier near the San Juan del Monte Bridge, and this started the Philippine War. And the war went on for several years, and nag-cause ito ng pagkamatay ng libo-libong Filipinos that time. So next one is establishing American governance, policies, and promises. So once the main phase of the Philippine-American War ended, the United States began to process of establishing a colonial government and implementing policies designed to integrate the Philippines into the American sphere of influence. So After taking control of the Philippines, um, the Americans started setting up their own government in the country. And also, nangako sila na tutulungan nila yung Filipinos by teaching them how to govern themselves, improving education, health, and infrastructure, and also bringing democracy and progress. Next one is the benevolent assimilation. President McKinley's benevolent assimilation outlined the American intention to govern the Philippines not as a conquered territory but with the aim of uplifting and civilizing its Filipino. So, benevolent assimilation, um, it was the policy of the United States when they took control of the Philippines. The U.S. claimed they came to help and protect Filipinos, teach them education, good government, and Christianity, and not to harm them. But in reality, it also meant that the U.S. wanted to control the Philippines and make Filipinos follow American ways. Political development fra- from military rule to limited self-governance. So the path towards Filipino participations in governance was gradual and measured by the Americans. So at first, when the Americans took over the Philippines, the country was under the military rule. But later on, um, yun nga, controlled siya ng US Army. And sila yung gumagawa ng lahat ng decision. But later on, the US slowly allowed the Filipinos to take part in the government. So this stage was called limited self-governance because Filipinos could help govern. Next one is the Taft Commission or the Second Philippine Commission in 1900s. It was established by President McKinley, but the Taft Commission, it is led by William Howard Taft. He came to the Philippines in 1900s to help set up a civil or the non-military government. So, their job was to make laws, improve education, build roads and schools, and also prepare Filipinos for self-rule. So the commission replaced military rule with a more organized government and helped start public education in the country. The Philippine Bill of 1902. So this act, formally organized by government and authorized the creation of the Philippine Assembly. So the Philippine Bill of 1902, this was a law made by the US government, and it created the civil government in the Philippines. Next one is the Philippine Assembly, established in 1907. So, eto naman, this was the actual lawmaking body formed because of the Philippine Bill of 1902. So, it was made up of Filipino representatives elected by the Filipino. Like, we have leaders like Manuel L. Quezon and Sergio Osmeña to voice their aspiration and gain legislative experience. So this marked a significant step towards limited self-governance. So introduction of free public instruction for all for all children of school age. So we all know that in, English is one of the big contribution or the influence of the American here in the Philippines uh, because they promote the widespread literacy. So the introduction of free public instruction for all children of school age, um, this means that government made it possible for every children to go to school without paying any money. And the goal was to make education available, of course, to everyone para lahat ng bata is matuto magbasa, in writing, and of course, to other subjects. Next one is the Thomasites. So Thomasites are the teachers who arrived in the first few years of the American colonial period in the Philippines. So their main job was to teach Filipino children in public schools and to help set up the new public education system under American rule. So during American colonialism or colonization, many Filipinos began in writing compared in Spanish because of the increase of freedom expression. Because in Spanish colonialism, Filipino have limited opportunities to express their thoughts and also to critique the government. So many Filipinos started writing again in English, Tagalog, Spanish, and also vernaculars. So Filipino writers started writing news report, poetry, short stories, essays, novels, plays, and drama. So phases of English literature in the Philippines. So we have the three phases. We have the orientation phase, imitation phase, self-discovery, and growth phase. Reorientation phase, introduction to English literature as a literary vehicle. So, in this phase, writers began to explore writing in English rather than in Spanish or native language. Next one is imitation phase. Filipino writers groping their way into imitating American, and British style. So, during this period, writers imitates Western literature forms and genres like short story, poetry, and novels. The last phase is the self-discover and growth phase. Filipino writers had acquired the mastery of English writing. So, writers gain a high proficiency in English and it allows them to write confidently. So, that's the three phases of English literature in the Philippines. So here's the example of English literary pieces. We have Dead Stars by Paz Marquez Benitez. So this is a short story and it is about Alfredo Salazar, a man who is engaged to Esperanza but becomes infatuated with another woman. Next one is Footnote to Youth by Jose Garcia Villa. So, Footnote to Youth, it explored the consequences of youthful decisions, particularly the choice to marry or yeah at a young age. So Jose Garcia Villa, he is known as the father of Filipino modern poetry. Next example is Walang Sugat by Severino Reyes. Um, it is about a man leaves his sweetheart to join Katipunan. So si Severino Reyes naman, he is known as the father of Filipino drama. Next is Anikalang Ginto by Juan Abad. It explores nationalism, love, love and struggle for freedom during the American colonization of the Philippines. So Juan Abad was a Filipino printer, playwright, and journalist known for his patriotic plays. Next is Banaag at Sikat by Lope K. Santos. Significant Filipino novels that explore themes of love, socialism, and social justice. So, Lope K. Santos, he is known as the father of the Philippine national language and grammar. So, last example is Ang Panday. This poem addresses um, themes of social injustice, labor struggles, and class warfare. So, yun, Amado V. Hernandez, he is known for his influential socio-political novels and poems, his work as a journalist and labor leader, and his criticism of social injustices in the Philippines. So we have here the key figures and institutions. Several individuals and institutions were instrumental in the implementation and development of the American educational system in the Philippines. So we have William Howard Taft as the first civil governor of the Philippines and head of the Second Philippine Commission. He was a strong advocate for widespread public education and signed Philippine Commission Act number 74. So, he is the first serve as the civil governor of the Philippines, and he helped establish the government, law, and public services under American rule, and he also became the President of the United States. Next one is Dean Conan Worcester. So he is a member of a Philippine Commission and later Secretary of the Interior. Dean Conan was influential in shaping American policy, including aspects of education and public health. So he was a part of the group that helped govern and organize the Philippines under the Americans, and he also worked closely with Taft. Worcester was in charge of health, education, and also in natural resources in the island. So we have Fred W. Atkinson and David P. Barrows and other general superintendents of education. So these Americans educators headed the department or Bureau of Education and oversaw the practical implementation of policies, schools, construction, curriculum development, and teacher deployment. So, um, um, Atkinson and Barrows were American educators sent to the Philippines during the American period. So, Atkinson became the first general superintendent of education in the Philippines. Um, He helped organize the public school system and made sure that schools and also the teachers followed American style education, while David P. Barrows naman was also involved in education. He helped develop the school system and advise on policies for teaching Filipino children, especially in rural areas. So the Thomas sites. So I skipped the Thomas sites because na-discuss ko na siya kanina. So next we have the Filipino educators. So Filipino teachers trained at the Philippine Normal School and graduates of the Pensionado program and the University of the Philippines became increasingly important in staffing and leading the educational system, gradually taking over from the Americans. So Filipino educators, uh they are the local teachers who gradually replace the American teachers in the Philippine education system. So many were trained at the Philippine Normal School, which specifically prepared them for teaching. Others were graduates of the Pensionado program and the University of the Philippines. Next is the Bureau of Education, the central administrative body responsible for the entire public school system. So their role or responsibility is to set the educational policies, managing resources, and also supervising school across the country. So the bureau ensured that the education system was standardized and accessible to all Filipinos, regardless of their location or social status. So, Philippine Normal School, the cornerstone for training Filipino teachers. So, this was the institution dedicated to training Filipino teachers. So, it provides subject matter expertise and practical teaching experience. So the University of the Philippines, the apex of the public education system, producing the intellectual and political elite. So this was considered the top or the peak of the public education system, and they're responsible for providing advanced education, conducting research, and producing leaders in various fields. So let's go on the challenges and criticisms. First, we have the language barrier. The most immediate challenge was teaching students and communicating with communities in English, a foreign language. So when the Americans set up schools, of course, ginagamit nila yung English as the main language of instruction. So most Filipino students and also teachers at that time did not know English well. So it was hard to learn lessons or communicate. So this caused confusion, slower learning, and frustration for both students and teachers. Next, we have the resistance from traditional structures. The secular nature of the American system sometimes clash with the influence of the Catholic Church and traditional community structures, although the widespread desire for education often overcame this resistance. So, before the Americans, um, the Philippines had its own leaders, um, um, like local chiefs, the Spanish era elites, and traditional system. So when the Americans came, they introduced new government, laws, schools, and policies. So some local leaders and communities didn't want to give up their old ways or lose power. Next is Filipino nationalism. Filipino nationalists criticized the emphasis of English and American culture as the form of cultural imperialism designed to undermine Filipino identity and perpetuate colonial rule. Dito naman, some Filipinos felt that the focus on the English and American culture was a way of forcing American culture on them, which hurt Filipino identity and kept them under colonial rule. So maraming nagtataka that time na um, nakafocus na ay mas nakafocus na sila sa American culture, and napapansin nila na natatakpan or natatabunan na yung um, Filipino culture or yung history. Kaya ayun, isa siya sa negative effects. So, quality and equity. While access increased dramatically, the quality of education varied widely, particularly between urban and rural areas, ensuring equitable access to good schools and qualified teachers remain a challenge. Even though more people had access to education, so yung quality of education was very different depending on whether um, you live in urban or rural areas. So making sure everyone had equal access to good schools and teacher was still a problem. So next, we have the brain drain. The pensionado program, while beneficial in creating an educated elite, also led to some Filipinos remaining in the United States, contributing to a form of brain drain. So, for example, imagine the Philippines as a school and US as a big company. So the US needed skilled workers. So they made it easier for bright Filipinos to come and work for them. So this led many talented Filipinos um, to leave their home country for better opportunities in the US, causing the Philippines to lose valuable professionals like doctors, teachers, yan. Imbes na dito sila mag-work sa Philippines, pumupunta sila ng ibang bansa or nagsistay sila sa ibang bansa para um, uh, mas makahanap ng better opportunities. So here we have the legacy of American educational reforms. We have the establishment of the public school system. So they believe that education should be accessible to all, regardless of socioeconomic status, and is essential for democratic society. English language proficiency. The emphasis on English as medium of instruction resulted in a high level of English proficiency among educated Filipinos, making the Philippines one of the largest English-speaking nation in the world. So, English language proficiency became a legacy of the American regime because the Americans introduced English as the main language in school and government. This, the Americans um, taught English and it stayed shaping how Filipinos learn, work, and communicate even today. Influence on Filipino culture and identity. So, the Americanization process, driven significantly by education and language, contributed to the hybrid nature of modern Filipino culture, incorporating elements of American values, pop culture, and political thought. So it became a legacy because many changes lasted even after the American left. Like the English language, it's still um, used in school, government, and media. Even the democratic ideas like voting, uh, elections, and civic participation continue today. And also the lifestyle and entertainment. Yeah. So it continued to shape it continued to shape Filipino daily life. Last one is the development of Filipino human capital. The educational system produced generations of educated Filipinos who contributed to the nation's development in various fields, including politics, economics, science, and art. So, Americans helped Filipinos become educated and skills, and this still helps the country today. Like the teachers and professional, um, they trained it um, during that time are still shaping education and work. Even people learn skills and English which help them to get better better jobs. Um, and even the schools and educations school and education system they started are still used today. So the Americans taught Filipinos skills and knowledge that continue con- uh, to help the country grow. That's all po for my report. Thank you po.